everybody. Once again, this is Lehman Crafton, aka Zorvalachan, Less Than Guru, with the next installment of the realities of original Torg. And today we will be talking about space gods. And yet again, I've changed the format. I was having trouble getting the name and the photo, so I kind of moved myself over a little bit. But it seems to me that this area around me looks even faker than it did before. So it is something we'll deal with, hopefully. So we are talking about the space gods, and I might have another small rant at the end of this video as well. So I'll let you know when that happens. So if you don't want to listen to me rant, you can press stop. Once again, I appreciate for everybody who's been watching these, and really appreciate my subscribers. But let's dig in to the space gods. So the space gods are a reality that's kind of linked and not linked with the Earth. It's a spacefaring race who is able to kind of manipulate reality in their own way without needing to use darkness devices, and they can travel from cosms to cosms in these organic looking spaceships like here. And the premise is kind of based off of the book and the history, way before the History Channel was probably a thing, and before it became the Alien Ancestors channel, or the Aliens Did Everything channel on Earth. It takes a cherry to the gods type approach of ancient races, or ancient race of these beings that are called the Akashans, that they went to different cosms within the Cosmverse. And remember, the Infiniverse is made up of every Game Master's cosm, as well as the various official cosms, like the original Torg and Torg Eternity. So the Akashans on the cosm, in the Cosmverses that they're present in, they are normally able to go cosm to cosm, using these spaceships, for lack of a better word. And they would go to other cosms, and they would kind of do we're more advanced than you, so listen to us and let us teach you how to do things. So even though they kind of like have this bio thing, like here, and like this guy's wearing this headdress, they're bio-organic living things. They kind of have a Meso and South American influence, like Incans and Aztecs and stuff. And they basically they went to Earth in those areas, and they taught us humans things. And then they had problems, and they left. But on Earth, they left a way that once we as Earthlings became high enough, say tech-wise, our knowledge and our cooperation and things like that, they left clues around Earth. And the very, very popular Relics of Power trilogy, before this source book came out for this reality, the players went on this, and all the surveys were gathered, and this thing known as the signal fire was lit. And then I'm sure at the time, because like I said, I didn't participate in the Infiniverse because I learned about Torg a couple of years after Torg came out, and then by the time I got my hands on a personal copy for myself and started game mastering, it was like only a year or two before Torg ended. So I was delayed, but apparently, I'm sure the GMs for those groups were, waiting like impatiently with, just what did we do? What did we do? Our heroes won. What did we do? Because it never stated what was done. Well, what happened is that sent out a big signal out into the cosmverse that told these guys, the Akashans, known as the space gods, hey, we are ready, and come. So the space gods came, but they also came because they thought, oh, Earth is so probably so, to find our clues, to put them together, to send out the signal fire. They are so advanced now that they could help us because they had their own problem. Well, they didn't take into account or didn't cross their minds that the possibility wars were happening, and the reason that people from Earth were able to put things together is because it wasn't just people from Earth. It was people from the cyber papacy, people from Rorsch, people from all the other, Pampas or Nippon Tech, all the other realities that had hit Earth, and all these Storm Knights now can use possibilities and do things better than what they could before they had transformed when they were just ordinary people. So there was kind of that fake or false advancement that was able to get this signal fire lit. So they came in and they had their own problem, which was a plague, a contagion. And it was similar, say, if you take the Borg mentality of we will assimilate you from Star Trek and zombies and kind of smash them together, because they kind of you'd get this infection in you and it would link you to a hive mind, and as the infection started, the longer it was in you, you would go through stages of the disease, and at the end you basically became a mindless zombie. Now, you weren't undead type things, but you kind of might look like it. So some of the photos or pictures, artwork that they show in this book kind of make them look zombie-ish, but it's more described of this hive mind that lowers your own intellect. It makes you physically stronger, and then you're doing whatever the hive mind wants you to do. So it kind of added that aspect of it. Also, the space gods, like they did on Earth, they did have other what they called client planets or client species that were different races from different, but not like elves and dwarves all and humans all living on the same world in the same cosm. They were a spacefaring or cosm jumping race, so they would find cosms and planets, and they would find different species. So it was kind of very Star Trek, Star Warsy in that, and you had different species like Lorbots, which were kind of beetle or cockroach people, and Lorindi, which were kind of bird people, and or I think they had bat wings. They're bat type wings under their arms, and just various races you could be. So you didn't have to just be the Akashans that kind of looked human. And they were similar to what I explained Pole Powers were. They could get genetic enhancement packages that would boost their things, kind of like how Pole Powers worked, and you had a cost of possibility energy that you had to spend at the beginning of adventures to be able to keep that. So let's go through the axioms. So when the space gods landed on Earth, they had a much higher tech. So their tech is 30. So in old Torg it was a tech between 1 and 33, so they were 30. So they were very, very high. They didn't do cybernetics like the cyber papacy. They kind of evolved past that, and everything was genetic modifications and all of these bio type things. So instead of like having Google Translate, it would be something like the earworms or what I want. I haven't read it, but I've heard a lot of people talk about them. But just the thing that allows you, like, a symbiotic creature goes inside of you, and it allows you to hear languages, understand languages, things like that. So basically, anything that we or the cyber papacy would have a tech for, like a metal or cyberware type tech type thing for. They had like a bio equivalent, organic equivalent to that, including like bows. They would, you have a bow and they would shoot an arrow that was a living thing, and once it hit you, it would start, it would eat inside of you. A very reminiscence of the living land. And actually, because of that, even though the tech was so high of 30 and the living land's tech so low at 7, the living land people who did not like tech and that, they actually didn't mind the space gods. They didn't mind the Akashans because they saw the Akashans as having living tools, which was very good for in their eyes. There was some lower tech that was still higher than cyber papacy and not bioorganic, but they were used by a specific group within the Akashans known as the Monitors, which were kind of like their soldiers. So the space gods come down. They have a tech of 30, which is the highest tech of any cosm or any reality, and then they have also a high social of 27. So the other high social is Nippon Tech at 24, Core Earth at 23. So the Akashans are really able to work together for the most part, and have good ways of communication and government and things like that. Then you have 2 that are kind of lower. Magic is 7, so magic is pretty low. It's lower than Core Earth. It is higher than Nippon Tech and Living Land, but that's about it. So you're not really going to have mages or that from the space god reality. And then the spiritual is 13. So the spiritual is decent, higher than Core Earth, but lower than like Isle. It's really close to Cyber Papal 14. So you could have pretty decent priests from the space god reality. So that's kind of their axiom, kind of the general setting of it. We have world laws. The space gods didn't have the stele because they did not have a darkness device, and they weren't necessarily trying to suck people's possibility energy out of them. They had a thing that was interesting known as reality trees, and you would plant a reality tree and it would grow, and you would put a person into it, and that reality tree would grow, and that person's personal reality, their axioms, would then form instead of the triangle bounded by stele, you would have a reality tree in the middle, and it would have a radius. It would go out into a circle around that, and anything in that section was considered a mixed zone of the Akashan reality, because normally they're the ones who went into it, but later you could have a Nile Empire person in it. But so it was a mix of Core Earth or whatever. If it was within a stele bound, it would be whatever that stele bounded area was, and then the reality of the person within that reality tree. So you could have tons and tons and tons of different combinations, which a few of them came up later. But at the beginning, it was kind of mixed Core Earth / Akashan space god realities, because the space gods were the ones in those reality trees. And they had very much philosophies of acceptance. So they had like a world law, and let me make sure that I get the names of these correct. But they had like the law of acceptance. So we went through the axioms. The law of acceptance is one, and that basically even goes further than the you carry your own reality with you. So a Nile Empire could use, say, the law of action and boost their roles with possibility energy in other realms, but this allowed other things that could possibly be used. So it basically, when you went into that, you really kept everything with you, um, which is kind of interesting. They have the law of religious compatibility, which is kind of like the complete opposite of the cyberpapal law of the one true God. But what this allowed people to do is, in the original Torg, if you had a priest of one religion that was trying to invoke even a beneficial miracle on somebody from another religion, there was a chance that it wouldn't work, because you had these competing religions, and they had bonuses, like if you're, or negatives. They had modifiers. You know, if you're from this religion and you're doing something to somebody from this religion, you know, what is the modifier to that? So somebody like from the Sikellum doing something to cyberpapacy, they're both Christianish type religions, so it might not be that bad of a negative, or maybe it just kind of is a washout. But if you had something like Lanala trying to do something to, you know, even a beneficial miracle to somebody from the cyberpapacy, those concepts are very, very, very different and not really accepting of each other. And priests could even like accidentally hurt the person they're doing the miracle to, or themselves. So you have this religious conflict. And a lot of my groups, they would purposely find out who, if there is a priest in the party, who that priest was, and then just be that faith, even if it was something completely different, just to not be hurt when they're trying to be healed or trying to be buffed. And when we get into the mechanics, I might explain it further, but it's not that big of a thing to talk about. It's one of those minute details, but it does happen. Is if a super powerful, like glorious miracle is performed by a priest, and you have anybody watching it that doesn't have a faith skill with at least 1 point in it, 1 add, you could convert people. You can force them to convert to your religion right there on the spot. Boom, they, you know, their experience or possibility experience currency is taken. Now they have faith in your religion. So a lot of my players would just do that right at the beginning to make sure that they had faith, so that they weren't converted in the middle and had some possibilities taken away from them that they might have wanted to use during that adventure. So and what was funny, it was always places like the Living Land religion or Land Below religions. Those would be the ones that got people. The other one was the Dunad. So I had like three groups that had different things kind of force people to do that, and after that they started choosing their religion at character creation to match the party, so they could get those benefits and not be converted later on down the line. So they have this law of religious compatibility, which meant that everybody works together, so you didn't have to worry about those bad occurrences. And then they had what they call was the way of Zenat, and which is like if you just hear it, you don't think about it. You're like, okay, whatever, I don't know what that is. But it's kind of interesting, because the way of Zenat, to me, even though they say it's not a philosophy, it's more of a philosophy than a religion. It's kind of a way of doing things. So it's a practical philosophy or lifestyle type thing. It's not just in your head completely. It's a living your life in a certain way philosophy. But it was broken up into three sections, and anybody from the Akasha, anybody from the space god's reality, had to choose an alignment. And it's funny, because it's not like the good evil of inclinations of Nile Empire. And it's called alignment, so you might think like D&D alignment, but it's not like that at all. It's philosophies. And you could have a good person who had what might be seen as the bad philosophy, and vice versa, because it was a lifestyle, it was a mentality, it wasn't just good evil. Basically, there's three different ones of these, and the first one is Aka, And the Aka philosophy, or part of the way of Zenat, is that you basically want to stay out of everybody's business. You just want to kind of keep to yourself, and you're individuals over the group, and you try to find nonviolent ways to do things. So you're kind of like peaceful hermits, which would be kind of an analogy to this lifestyle. And then so that's kind of like a middle ground of just, hey, we don't want to get ourselves involved. We just want to deal with ourselves, and individual and small groups are better, than huge groups and that. And then you have a core. I always called it core, but it might be coar, COAR. And these are people that believe that it is their duty, being the super high social and super high tech, when they find other races and beings on other planet, it is their duty to educate them. It is their duty to go in and teach them the right way to do things. And people with strength and high technology and high social aspect, it's their duty, but they need to do it, and they need to show people why their way is correct and the other one. So it's really analogous to a lot of what's happened on our world, where somebody from outside comes in and they think these people here are lesser than them for whatever reason. So we need to go in and we need to kill their language and their culture because they need ours, because ours is better, that type of mentality. So that's kind of the Coar mentality. And then you have the Zenat, which is funny because it's one of the three, but the whole world law is called the law of Zenat. And they are supposed to be like we bring harmony everywhere, everybody's equal. We shouldn't go in, we should go in and maybe trade ideas and stuff, but we shouldn't impose our values and our tech and our social things onto others of these client races. So that's kind of the three alignments that you get. So you could have like a Nile hero that's a good hero, but kind of like the in your face or intimidation type hero. Be Coar, however you pronounce it. I'll just say Coar. Or you could have a villain that is more of the accepting of other ideas and stuff, but there just happen to be a villain. So I mean, you can have that type of difference. A good Coar or a bad Zenat, or just any of them could be Aka. So and they even had like a thing like, if you're from Isle and you have honor, then you have to be Zenat. If you're from Isle and have corruption, then you're Core. If you're cyber papal, but you're only if you're of the cyber papal faith, then you will be Core. If you're anything else, you don't have to worry about the alignment, or you choose based off of your own thing. And like I said, Nile usually would go Zenat or Core depending on hero villain, but not always. So they have like a whole list of every other realm and what it would be. One of the things that was introduced in this Space Gods book was Psionics. So where miracles and priest things were connected to spirit, where like spells were connected to magic. Psionics was not connected directly to any of the axioms. Now it changed in Torg Eternity, and when I do Torg Eternity, I'll talk about that. But in the original Torg, it's based off of 3 different axioms. So you had to have a social of 21, which besides the Akashans themselves, mean it was core Earth and Terra, if you use the Terra book, that were able to do have that psychic or that social part of psychics. And then you had spiritual of 9, and that also, if you take social and spirit, both Terra and Core Earth work with that, and then Tech of 15, which even though it's Isle doesn't have the social of 21, it has the spirit. So basically, if you condense these three of social 21, spirit of 9, and tech of 15, you have three different realities that could handle psionics, and that is Terra, that, and not Nile Empire, they didn't quite make the social, but it would be Terra, Core Earth, and Space Gods reality. So that was one thing that you, in a well, you know, why would I pick Terra when it's basically the Nile and only socials higher? Well, you could be a gumshoe psychic detective, you know, that type of thing. So it did open a possibility and why you might choose Terra over Nile Empire. So that was one thing. Now, a lot of people did not like the rules of psionics. They were kind of complicated, and if you didn't, I mean, what do I want to say? A lot of people like playing clerics, priests, calling down miracles of deities. A lot of people like magic users, casting spells. Psionics, in my experience, has always had a lesser amount of people wanting to do it. So since Torg Original had different subsystems for every single reality, or for every basically for each type of different thing, they had a different subsystem. So psionics was different. How you did that was different than how magic was done, and was different than how miracles were done. That you didn't have as many people that did psychics because you only had 3 realms that allowed it, and Terror was one of the very last ones. So when this book came out, you could be Core Earth or you could be Akashan. And if you're not used to something, if it's not common, even as a game master, if none of my players ever chose a psychic character, then I would never need to learn the psychic rules. I had, in 25 years, I had one character who actually chose to do psionics, and they also were a priest, so they actually stuck to the miracles more. So it was like every adventure I did with that character, I kind of like had to quickly learn how to do the psionic rules, and they're a little weird. A lot of people hated him. I don't actually have. I won't say I had enough experience with it. I remember reading it and going, okay, now I kind of understand how it works and stuff, and it doesn't seem. It seems like it's not a lot of bang for your buck, but I really can't say that I dislike it or that I think it's completely broken. A lot of people did, and that's perfectly fine if that's what they thought, because maybe they had some people that really wanted to be psychic and have psychic powers, but they just couldn't. At some point they figured out that it's broken in one way or another. So that is one thing, that if you go into original Torg and you look at this and you have people that really want to do psionics, then fully understand what's going on. They have to be these 3 axioms. And you have all this other stuff on it. So be careful of that. So world laws, setting, the plague with the hive mind. This is the book that had psionics in it that I really can't comment about very much, because I really don't remember it, because I didn't have to learn it except for once, and then that person didn't really use a lot of the psionic powers all the time, and that the player didn't actually play very long. So that's take what I say with psionics with a grain of salt. All I know is that when I was looking on the web, and like Kansas, I talked about Kansas Jim, the actual original Torg guru. He basically was saying how it was broken, and he was trying to find out different ways to do psionics in Torg. So that's it. Now you can stop now, and it will be fine. I'll go ahead and I'll say like, dislike, subscribe now, but I'll do my little rant. And if you don't want to hear it, stop now. video is perfectly fine. I think I pretty much said what I wanted to in this. This was another one of my books. It's hard to see that one of the two books that fell apart that I put into a notebook binder, 3-ring binder. So, Rant. My background, as I've stated a few times, is I have a degree in anthropology, bachelor's degree in anthropology, and in classics and classical languages. So, and I didn't do them at one time. I did anthropology first, and then I was still kind of up in the air of what I wanted to do, so I used all my credits that I had for that degree, put them towards another degree, and focused more on ancient Greeks and ancient Romans, and I got a degree in that. But I do have an anthropology degree. I've read a lot, and it's something that, even though I don't work with anthropology now, one of my players is actually an anthropology professor, and I keep up with a lot of stuff that's going on. And I personally take it as an insult when you say that people like this, space gods, ancient aliens, had to come to Earth to teach ancient man how to do things. That is an insult to us personally as humans, and to our ancestors who were able to do things that maybe we don't understand why or how they did it, but it does not mean that they could not do it. Humans can be very intelligent, and just because your mind, or even my mind, isn't big enough in this whatever particular field, whether it's creating a pyramid of Egypt or a pyramid that is Aztec or Mayan, doesn't mean that our ancestors could not do it. And you're insulting our ancestors, our human ancestors, and ourselves from, the place that we came from, by saying that I don't understand. My mind is so small that I don't understand how a human could do this that had only stone tools, so it must have been aliens. And that gets me. And that gets me really badly, because there's no evidence for it. And even in pyramids, when people are trying to link through Atlantis, the Nile, the Egyptian pyramids and the Aztec periods, we're talking millennia difference between the two. We are talking, thousands of years of BC or BCE, or current era CE or AD, whichever way you do it. But thousands of years of BCE and say AD. You have thousands of years between the two pyramid types, and you're saying that people, from space came and taught both of the people at the same time. People don't have that concept of the great amount of time between the two, or how smart our ancestors could be. No, they didn't have calculators, but they have papyrus. They knew how to do a math, even if it wasn't kind of like how we do maths. We have pretty good evidence that they used water as a level. We have our level thing that has a little bubble in it, and we figure out, it's level. They used a water line, things like that. They had other ways of doing things. There is writing showing, or at least explaining, how our ancient ancestors did things. So I'm really, it bothers me to no end when modern humans just insult our ancestors and ourselves, our heritage, because they don't think that they were smart, because they didn't necessarily have as advanced tech as we do. It doesn't mean that they couldn't have good ideas. So I have always taken it that these people came, the Akashans came, but they didn't do any buildings that are real buildings. If something is found on Earth, humans did it, not these guys. Now, what I do allow in a fantasy fictional Earth, I do allow them to have come down, and if you put a completely different building that is not real, not something we can actually find on our real Earth, then these guys might have done that. And it might have inspired our ancestors, but they did not build the pyramids, either types. They did not do any of these buildings like Stonehenge or whatever thing that you don't understand how our ancestors, they did none of it. They might have did buildings that in a fictional world could be found, but they're not anything that are on our world or on our real Earth. And those things might have inspired our ancestors to build it, but they did not need the tech of these people. They did not need the social of these people, and definitely anything real world was not done by these people. And I think that then you can use the Akashans, you can use the space gods without necessarily insulting our ancestors and insulting ourselves as humans and from where we've come from. So that's my little rant on space gods. And that will be the video for this reality. Again, it was a reality that came in, and it wasn't a triangle. They weren't invaders. They were able to cosm to cosm without darkness devices. They had a, if you want to call it, a clean reality way to have their reality come in. And on the map, it's kind of interesting. They came in at like Peru, northern South America, and it shows all these like circles all around where their reality trees were set up, where people could come in. This book I actually thought was also really good, and I think I might have mentioned it when I was doing the entire general section, is they have some other cosms in here in the template. So they even have like a cyber papacy template of the Knight Templars and things like that. So even if you're, as a game master, playing through and your space gods haven't landed yet, you haven't gone through the relics of power, or you just decide this stuff is way too high tech, you can still look at the psionics. And like I said, you're going to have to make that decision of yourself. Is psionics in here worth it? But you could have core Earth psychics, you could have Terran psychics, like I said, cyber papacy. So this book is and can be useful even if you never bring the space gods into your campaign, even if your players say failed the relics of power, or you don't have access to it and you don't want to bring it, or you just go, wow, these guys are pretty powerful, I don't want them in my game, or it's going to come much later or something like that. You can still use information in this book. So that's another thing. So I am Lehman Crafton, aka Zorval Chan, Less Than Guru. I have been looking at my video and I really don't like the stuff going on, so maybe if I need to do this again, I'll change this white background, maybe a black background or something will look better next time. But like I said, I have very, very little experience of doing this. I'm learning as I go. I just started adding backgrounds recently because I found I downloaded a program that allowed it. So just going as I'm going. So it is a new year, so happy 2021, and I hope everybody had a good New Year's, and I hope this year we're able to get out of all the crap of 2020. I know I have places that I would like to go, people I would like to see, and I'm sure a lot of people do as well. So until next time, which will probably be tomorrow, see you later.